Welcome to the channel for the future caretakers of resurrected species. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keepers Association.
Hello there. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keeper Association. My name is Austin. Stegosaurus. One of the most popular dinosaurs, up there with Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, and Velociraptor. Such a well-known dinosaur, but surprisingly, not a lot of people really know it. Or at least, they don't really know the Stegosaurus itself. And pretty much been misled on myths around the animal. And it's a real shame. The animal is a lot more interesting than people think. Stegosaurus, a large ornithian herbivore, typically grew around to be 21 to 30 feet in length and weighed between 6,800 to 8,400 pounds. Basically between 3.4 to 4.2 tons. Basically around the same as a modern-day elephant. Now, take note that there are in fact three species of Stegosaurus. There is Stegosaurus stenops, Stegosaurus ungulatus, and Stegosaurus scelcatus. Now, Stegosaurus stenops is smaller than Stegosaurus ungulatus, the two species that are more well known. Now, stenops is reaches the length of 21 feet in length and weighing 3.9 tons, while ungulatus, the larger species, reach an average of 23 feet in length and 4.2 tons. Although some individuals can get larger than this. Stegosaurus scelcatus is the smallest of the other species, reaching 23 feet in length and weighing 2.6 tons, so making it lighter out of the compared to the other species. Along with its large school bus size, Stegosaurus is also known for the iconic plates on its back. There have been much debate over their use, but it's been generally accepted that they are often used for both display and thermal regulation. Although, as of recent years, the former is more accepted than the latter. Another well-known trick of the Stegosaurus is their thagomizer, or basically the spikes on the end of their tails. Stegosaurus use them to defend themselves against predators. There have been some Allosaurus fossils found with wounds that perfectly match only Stegosaurus's thagomizers. One fact that is commonly known to Stegosaurus is basically one that is a bit of a misunderstanding, is that the Stegosaurus has the smallest brain in relation to body size of all the dinosaurs, with only long-necked dinosaurs or sauropods being close to that. There's a lot more to it than that. Its brain's often been said to be around the size of a walnut, or 30 grams, but in actuality, that's not the case. The brain of a Stegosaurus is actually about the size of an average dog's brain, about between 500 or 130 grams, or around the size of a lemon. But it is pretty small compared to an animal of the same size. But along with being bigger than people think it is, it's also more dense with neurons, since it's more like a bird's brain than a mammal's brain. It's basically as smart as it needs to be. And I often theorize that a small brain in relation to body size is a way to be able to make do with the food in its environment. But we'll get to that later. There is another very interesting adaptation that these animals have, but again, we'll get to that later. A little hint, it's kind of connected to the theory that I mentioned earlier. But anyway, we'll get to that later. While there is no definitive proof, evidence from fossil discoveries, individuals being found together, and trackways suggest that Stegosaurus likely lived in herds, possibly for protection and social interactions. The only difference is that they may not have formed large single species herds like hadrosaurs and some ceratopsians did. It is said that Stegosaurus lived in the late Jurassic period between 155 and 145 million years ago, along with other famous dinosaurs like Allosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Apatosaurus, and Brontosaurus, and lived with some pterosaurs such as Dimorphodon. We'll get to those in other videos. Some of the best Stegosaurus fossils are found in the Upper Morrison Formation, a distinctive sequence of Upper Jurassic sedimentary rock found in the western United States, which has been the most fertile source of dinosaur fossils in the whole North American continent. Fun fact, Stegosaurus is in fact the state dinosaur of the state of Colorado, which is actually the state I grew up at. So, yeah, it's a special dinosaur to me. The Stegosaurus' habitat is a semi-arid and subtropical environment, likely in seasonal floodplains with dry plains and lush fern savannas, along with conifer, cycads, and monkey puzzle trees. Alright, now that we got a good idea about these animals, we'll learn more information about them as we go in the video. Let's look at where they're going to invade. In the Central American country of Colombia. As mentioned, the Republic of Colombia is a Central American country located in the northwestern part of the South American continent. The country's climate is generally tropical and isothermic, meaning that the temperature is practically always constant due to its location near the equator, and also means that they experience very little seasonal change. The country's diverse geography results in various variations of climate across the region, primarily influenced by altitude. Colombia generally has a warm tropical climate, with temperatures averaging between 24 and 30 degrees Celsius, or for my fellow Americans, 75 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And of course, the weather is relatively consistent throughout the year, again, influenced more by altitude than by seasons. This country experiences a bimodal rainfall season from April to June and October to December. Average humidity is generally around between 73 to 86%. Colombia's environment is characterized by significant biodiversity, diverse climates, and various environmental challenges. The country's geography, ranging from the Andes Mountains to the coast, contributes to a wider range of ecosystems, including rainforests, savannas, and deserts. Now that we described both the species and the environment, it makes one wonder, how would Stegosaurus cope with this country's climate, environment, and everything that comes with it? Definitely gonna be some surprises, I promise you that. Temperature-wise, it's not too far off from what Stegosaurus is used to. According to studies on the Morrison Formation, Stegosaurus experienced an average temperature of its habitat to be around 97 degrees Fahrenheit. In winter, it'll probably be like as low as 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Summer temperatures reach around 97 degrees Fahrenheit, suggesting that a climate about 9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than present day temperatures. Colombia is surprisingly cooler than the Jurassic was said to be, between 75 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. But with the seasons barely changing, which again is the definition of isothermal, it wouldn't be that much of an issue for Stegosaurus. Humidity, on the other hand, would definitely be a struggle for Stegosaurus. With the exception of wet seasons and some lowland humidity, Stegosaurus' habitat is generally dry or semi-arid, closely resembling that of a savanna. With this constant and prolonged exposure to high humidity, Stegosaurus would probably suffer from some conditions like trouble with temperature regulation, like heat stroke or heat exhaustion, electrolyte imbalance, and be more susceptible to diseases, from respiratory problems to fungal infections. As you can see, the temperature is right. Humidity might be an issue for Stegosaurus. Although, even though Colombia is mostly known for having rainforests and stuff like that, there are some areas that are semi-arid that might actually work for Stegosaurus. Several regions in Colombia experience semi-arid conditions. One of these areas includes the Tatacoa Desert. While it's not a true desert with sand dunes, it's characterized by dry canyons and rocky terrain. The Guajira Peninsula, located in the extreme north, is also a semi-arid region. Along with that, there are parts of the Caribbean coast that experience a tropical semi-arid climate with distinct rainy and dry seasons. The Llanos region of Colombia experience a tropical savanna climate, characterized by a well-defined wet and dry season with high temperatures year-round. Precipitation is concentrated during the wet season, typically between April and November. With rainfall, it varies from region to region, so there's that. And the temperatures generally exceed 75 degrees Fahrenheit, or 24 degrees Celsius if you're from the UK, or anywhere in Europe, throughout the year. As long as finding the right climate and habitat to live, Stegosaurus will also need to be able to get some food. Now, mind you, it used to be thought that Stegosaurus would have a weak jaw, but studies have shown that Stegosaurus actually has the jaw strength akin to that of modern herbivores like sheep and cattle. So, various varieties of plants can definitely be on Stegosaurus' menu. Although, this might not be as easy as you would think. While Stegosaurus might prefer drier areas, some of its favorite food would most likely be found in more tropical areas, especially in the rainforests. Ferns, shrubs, moss, and conifers are considered as sources of food for the Stegosaurus, and those are found in the rainforests of the Amazon. There are even a few species of conifers in the Amazon, like the Podocarpus family. And I'm probably going to say this first: no grass for Stegosaurus. We haven't found much evidence for grass being there, and since it's mostly a browser, it's most likely it's not going to do well for it. And science may change on that, but for the time being, no grass. However, there is a family of plants that are not only native to Colombia, but have the greatest diversity of them in that country. And it's actually a plant that's very important to the Stegosaurus. So much so, in fact, that according to scientists, when this variety of plants' diversity dropped as Jurassic and Cretaceous were turning, the population and the diversity of Stegosaurs and the rest of its kind dropped as well. So, and even to the point that it went to extinct. So, this plant is immensely important to the Stegosaurus. The group of plants are the cycads, seed plants that typically have a spout and woody trunk with a crown of large, hard, stiff evergreen and usually pinnate leaves. Cycads are also gymnosperms, or naked seeds, meaning that their unfertilized seeds are open to the air to be directly fertilized by pollination, as contrast with angiosperms, which have enclosed seeds with more complex fertilization arrangements. It has been theorized that the Stegosaurus might have had a partial specialization or symbiotic relationship with cycads, since when the diversity of cycads dropped in the fossil record, the diversity of Stegosaurs dropped to the point of extinction along with. Oh, one of the traits that Stegosaurus is known, at least by scientists, that they have, is that they have actually bone underneath the skin of their throat that act like chainmail called gular armor, which is adapted to make sure there's nothing to prevent piercing, scraping. It's been theorized that, along with protecting them from predators, the the Stegosaurus armor on the neck, the gular armor, is said is to be able to protect the neck from the hard, sharp leaves of the cycads as they go for the seeds of the strobilus, the cone resembling a structure of cycads. There is evidence that cycads relied on the dispersal of its seeds via large megafauna, and since their diversity was greater when the dinosaurs were around, it is possible that dinosaurs spread the cycad seeds through their dung and expand the range of different varieties of cycads. A great diversity of cycads would definitely be important for Stegosaurus because even specialized animals do need a little bit of diversity of some sorts for nutritional reasons in their diet. One example is that with the panda bear, it would need to eat different species of bamboo in different times of the year. Like one variety of bamboo is high in calcium that it would need for milk production once it eventually gives birth to a cub. And there's another one that's high in protein for general consumption. The same could be said for Stegosaurus with cycads. Some species of cycads, for example, like Encephalosartos and Cycas micronesica, are high in calcium, which would be important for both bone growth and eggshell development. Now, mind you, these species of cycads I mentioned are not native or found in Colombia as far as I'm aware. But, and mind you, there are the studies of the nutritional values of cycads in Colombia are pretty limited, if not even studied, at least that I'm aware of. So it's hard to say which species of cycads in Colombia would be important nutritionally speaking, but it is possible, so this is definitely something to take into consideration. While it's often thought to be a low browser and is primarily a low browser, there is a possibility of it being able to rear up on its hind legs to browse higher up on a tree on occasion. Uh, Sorry about that inaccurate illustration. It was one of the few images of Stegosaurus that was public domain, and at least it's just show about rearing up. And that was how people first thought that Stegosaurus was like. We've come a long way, haven't we? Anyway, on the rearing up, the center of gravity of the Stegosaurus is said to be just in front of the hips, near the front of the pelvis. So this position is slightly forward and is very similar to that of bipedal dinosaurs. So with this in mind, it could be possible that Stegosaurus would rear up to browse on a tree. It'll probably be similar to that of elephants. They could do it, they just don't do it as often. They only do it like when they really need it to. And when a Stegosaurus rears up, it could potentially rear up to a height of 17 feet or 5.2 if you're using the metric system up high, reaching into the height of the tallest plates. While it's typically standing like 14 feet tall or 4.3 meters tall at the hips, and scientists definitely believe that their hind legs are pretty robust enough to be able to do this. But like I said before, they probably didn't do it too often. Only when They really needed to. With lower vegetation, Stegosaurus would definitely have competition with ferns and shrubs. One of them being the capybaras, several species of deer, and species of tapirs. And these are basically will be their main competition when it comes to browsing. If Stegosaurus could be able to rear up, then it could be able to feast on a bounty of food that these native herbivores can only dream of. Although they would definitely be a significant competition for young Stegosaurus. So until they reach a certain size. So this is definitely something to consider. One type of plant that Stegosaurus would most likely have barely any significant competition with are the cycads. Only very few species today make a meal out of cycads. Some insects, especially of moths, they will be able to make a meal out of some parts of the cycad. Some species, like monkeys and birds, would eat, at least in the case of monkeys, they will eat the fleshy pulp of the cycad cones, but they pretty much discard the seeds. Rodents and small birds would peel the fleshy outer layer of cycad seeds, but they discard the kernel. So, with this in mind, there is not a significant amount of competition in the case of the Stegosaurus when it comes to cycads. While in this scenario it would be the largest animal in Colombia, it would not be alone in this country as the largest free-roaming animal in this country, for it has a very unique unique arrival in this area. In the 1970s, the infamous drug cartel Pablo Escobar illegally obtained 4 hippos for a zoo in his ranch. When he was killed by the police in 1993, his ranch broke apart and many of the zoo animals were taken to zoos and sanctuaries across Colombia and nearby countries. Except for the hippos. Being in an environment that perfectly suited them, plenty of food, there's no droughts, and there are no natural predators, their populations grew exponentially. And according to a study in 2023, the population reached to a point of probably between 181 to 215 individuals. Since they've been, their population's been growing, they become a source of both a source of concern for people's safety and the environment, to even being like a profitable financial thing for towns, especially in the terms of ecotourism. Now, in the relation to this hypothetical scenario of these invasive hippos and the paleo-invasive Stegosaurus, how would that go? Well, since Stegosauruses are generally browsers on ferns, cycads, and conifers, whereas hippos primarily graze on grass, it is very unlikely they will compete with food that much, if ever. When it comes to water, that's a different story. While there is definitely plenty of water in the country of Colombia, hippos are known to be extremely territorial and are known to be responsible for killing over 500 people every year in Africa. Attacks have happened in Colombia, but none of them are fatal. Yet. It's only a matter of time. When a herd of Stegosaurus will get too close to a pod of hippos, at least when they're going down the drink right next to them, the bull would definitely become very defensive and will commence in either a territorial display, usually yawning and flickering their dung all over the place, a mock charge, or they'll just straight up charge at the dinosaurs. Since it's not much of a runner, most likely if Stegosaurus feels threatened, it will stand its ground and will send out warnings to the mammal. While I say here it could be speculation, I would imagine there'll be a lot of vocalization, especially infrasound, displaying its plates in a certain manner, stomping the ground, and possibly rearing up like a horse rearing up, and even having a Stegomizer in the air ready to swing. And when these two animals get into a fight, who would be most likely to win? Now, mind you, both of these animals would rather not fight and they'll just want to go their general way. That's usually how most animals are. But with the hippo's very itchy trigger finger and the Stegosaurus stand their ground policy, there's definitely going to be a lot of chances of them going to a fight, at least for the first encounters. Now, when it comes to blows, both species have some things going for them. The hippopotamus can run at speeds up to 19 miles per hour, have a bite force of 1,800 psi, with tusks that are over a foot and a half long, a height that is basically 2 inches thick, and weigh in between 1.4 to 5 tons. Definitely pretty heavy. Definitely, it's got some advantages for it. Stegosaurus is calculated to only run at speeds between 9.5 to 11 miles per hour, but it can swing its Stegomizer with 4 spikes that can grow between 2 to 3 feet long, with a force up to 77 pounds or swinging speeds at minimum of 90 miles per hour. Having that throat armor and weigh between 2 to 7 tons. Now, who would win? Now, mind you, it's generally very circumstantial. Like, there'll be times when the hippo would win. There'll also be times that the Stegosaurus would win. But I get the feeling that, at the most part, the Stegosaurus might be able to win more often. Its size and its armor would make it pretty difficult for the hippo's jaws to be able to make do with it. It's not impossible, it's just pretty difficult. But this Stegomizer can be a very effective weapon and be able to move at speeds faster than a hippo can run. As long as the Stegosaurus can be able to keep the mammal away or strike the mammal before the hippo starts going after it, it'll be able to keep it from the hippo biting its flank or biting its throat, anything like that. But while the Stegomizer can literally pierce the hippo's hide, and it's even been known to pierce ankylosaurus bone, it's not without risk. For in fact, one of the fossils of Allosaurus that has a Stegomizer wound on it shows that a little bit of the sheath of the spike of the Stegomizer actually got stuck and was pulled out. And we don't know if this Stegosaurus was okay after that or not, but definitely know it lost a spike and probably get an infection right in there. So yeah, there are definitely reasons why this is most likely be avoided for both species. I can imagine after several harsh encounters and probably after a few generations, the two species could be able to coexist in a decent manner. Although I could definitely imagine there'll be occasional spats at times, every now and then, especially when it comes to young animals who don't know any better. Now, what's the Stegosaurus being so big? Not the biggest of the dinosaurs, but still pretty big compared to what we have today. A fully grown Stegosaurus would pretty much have nothing to fear with any natural predators native to Colombia. However, they're young, and their eggs, on the other hand, they are definitely pretty vulnerable. Their eggs would definitely be immensely vulnerable to modern-day predators. One in particular would be the kuti, or the kutamundi, a relative of the raccoon, as well as other animals, such as reptiles and even birds, would definitely make a meal out of Stegosaurus eggs. How easy would it be for them? It would depend on what the Stegosaurus eggs are like. Now, mind you, we have not found any eggs that are confirmed to be from Stegosaurus. So we do not know if they are hard-shelled, like birds, or in the case of ornithian dinosaurs, hadrosaurs, or soft-shelled, like crocodiles, or in the case of ornithians again, ceratopsians, like triceratops. So it would pretty much depend. But regardless, there would definitely be animals that would make a meal out of their eggs. When the babies hatch, they still got a lot growing to do before they could be able to be impervious to attack. So there's a lot of animals that would make a meal out of small stegosaurs, like snakes, like boas and anacondas, tegu lizards, eagles, especially the infamous harp eagle, mustelids, canids, and small felines like ocelots would definitely make a meal out of them. As they get bigger, both in size and physical attributes like their plates and thagomizers, many of these predators would not become an issue to the growing dinosaurs. But there are still two predators that will still be an issue to them until they get to a certain size. There is one predator that is relatively familiar to Stegosaurus that reigns in Colombia: crocodiles. And in the case of Colombia, the 23-foot long Orinoco crocodile. This species of crocodile generally focuses on large fish, birds, and capybaras, who weigh between 77 to 150 pounds. I would say that will be the size range that Stegosaurus young would basically be doable for that crocodile. Probably a little bigger. Or, I mean, if not bigger. The second predator that the young stegosaurs would face until they get to a certain size is one that is very unfamiliar to the stegosaurus, and that is the famous Panthera onca, more commonly known as the jaguar. This formidable and powerful big cat would definitely be able to hunt young stegosaurus that weigh between 99 to 187 pounds, even maybe up to 286 pounds. What's more is that the jaguar's literal skull-crushing bite not only penetrate its armor in the throat, but could crush the young dinosaur's skull effectively. And maybe in the future, maybe with their small head, perhaps jaguars in the future would potentially develop ways to hunt bigger stegosauruses this way. But mind you, this is just speculative at best. It definitely goes without saying that for the most part, Stegosaurus would definitely be too big for the usual predators to hunt them down. However, there is one animal that native to Colombia that is infamous, but might become quite the menace to Stegosaurus, probably even more significantly so than the crocodiles and jaguars. The common vampire bat. Being quite widespread through Central and South America, especially even Colombia, vampire bats would definitely interact with Stegosaurus in this scenario. With their infamous diet of blood from living animals, especially from megafauna, a giant Stegosaurus would be a huge buffet to a swarm of vampire bats, going after some of the softer parts of the body, whether it's like the rectum, armpits, wrinkles, and especially even parts of the face. In this case, Stegosaurus would be a feast for all the vampire bats in Colombia. However, on this, there's a catch. As of recently, it's pretty much been stated that the ornithischian dinosaurs like Stegosaurus or bird-hip dinosaurs were often said to be either ectothermic, meaning cold-blooded, or mesothermic, meaning like they're kind of warm-blooded, but they don't stay warm-blooded all the time. So there's definitely that, or at least become more cold-blooded as they get older. Now, while vampire bats don't mind blood from ectothermic animals, I mean, they could they could easily go for that in captivity. They generally prefer warm-blooded animals, especially since vampire bats are one of the few mammals that have heat-sensing pits around their snouts to be able to discover, define the find the blood. But however, a Stegosaurus will probably stay pretty warm in the early part of the night, since a big animal like this takes a long time to cool off unless it dives into water or anything like that. And the young are considered warm-blooded, at least to an extent, as because they have a fast metabolism to be able to grow fast. If the vampire bats get a taste for these dinosaurs' blood, you could definitely expect that the populations of these little mammals would increase exponentially. Pretty much like how the introduction of livestock like horses, pigs, cattle, chickens pretty much done the same effect on the vampire bat population. With this happening, you could definitely expect that some stegosaurs, especially young and old individuals, will become weak with having their blood drained for days or weeks on end from these little mammals. Also, vampire bats are known to spread diseases as they do this, and it's definitely possible for these bats to pass diseases on to Stegosaurus. And if you pretty much, if the Stegosaurus have been in the environment for an extensive period of time, and then the vampire bats population explodes, and then you pretty much overnight or over day, in this case, exterminate all the Stegosauruses from that area, the vampire bats, all those vampire bats are gonna panic and pretty much go after anything and everything is in the area, including farmers and their livestock. As well as affecting the environment, you definitely know that Stegosaurus in Colombia would have conflicts with humans too. Conflicts with humans, conflict from humans. There's definitely going to be interactions between the two species. So, in some ways, very diverse, and in some ways, not exactly the way you think. One of the people that would definitely be affected are people from rural communities like farms and ranches. Now, I could definitely would say that it's less likely that cereal grains like oats and corn would be any kind of food source for Stegosaurus, but that doesn't mean that their crops will still be safe. Like if they're when they're migrating to go to get their favorite food, they could definitely walk through fields and trample them, pretty much like elephants would trample through a lot of things. And there are some crops, especially the country's primary crops like coffee, bananas, and cocoa, like chocolate, with chocolate trees, could probably be a good meal for Stegosaurus, or they'll make do with it. Oh boy. A Stegosaurus that's high on caffeine. That's a terrifying thought. Another thing with that, even though that they are browsers and preferring different plants than livestock would, there is definitely likely the possibility that they would have aggression towards livestock. Much like how elephants, rhinos, and hippos are known to be pretty aggressive, not just to predators, but even to other herbivorous animals, it's not too far fetched to think that Stegosaurus is probably the same way. And no doubt that cattle would either die instantly from an engagement with the Stegosaurus or become crippled to the point of needing to be euthanized. Because with a tail swing that could damage an Allosaurus, a regular old Brahmin cow would definitely not stand a chance. While some locals might see him as a pest, others will see him as a financial opportunity. Much like how the Colombian locals established ecotourism businesses in the light of the invasive hippos, it would not seem too far-fetched for people to set up similar ideas for the dinosaurs as well. It's not too hard to see why, since poverty is quite common in Colombia, with a poverty rate of 36.6% in 2022, which means that nearly 1/3 of Colombia's population lives in poverty. However, the poverty rate has been declining with some progress made in reducing poverty in 2023, but the point still remains. While ecotourism does seem like a viable money-making opportunity with these dinosaurs, there's another way, but it's not exactly legal. Wildlife trafficking is an illegal but profitable industry that is domestically worth as much as $17 million annually. Again, cocaine hippos are also part of this trade in Colombia as well, so it wouldn't be surprising that Stegosaurus would be part of it as well. What would be the valuable thing of Stegosaurus for the trade? Much like the baby hippos are in the trade in Colombia, baby Stegosauruses would go for the same thing, being popular for sell and trade. And just like how dinosaur fossils are part of traditional Chinese medicine as dragon bones, I definitely would not be surprised if that Stegosaurus bones, especially those of plates and spikes, would definitely be considered as dragon bones and would demand a very high price. There is one group of people that would definitely be affected by these dinosaurs in probably the most unique way: isolated or uncontacted tribes of the rainforest. There is basically evidence to suggest that as many as 18 tribes are living in isolation in the Colombian Amazon, and one of them is at least uncontacted. These tribes are facing threats from illegal activities and encroachment. Some tribes even experience devastating consequences from contact, like from either warfare or disease. Having no experience or knowledge about these animals in any way, shape, or form, I would definitely not be surprised that these people would be in complete shock when they see these Stegosaurus for the first time. One of two ways, or two of several ways I actually can see this going down. Either A, they'll see these dinosaurs as magical creatures or spirits that they must avoid, or could be seen as a new large animal that will make a good meal for a whole village. It'll definitely be tricky for them trying to get a Stegosaurus, but if they use the poison darts due to it, I wouldn't be surprised that would help them out. Much like how the hippo pretty much has an effect on the country of Colombia, the Stegosaurus would definitely have an interesting effect on the country's landscape, ecology, and economy. If you made it this far, thank you ever so kindly for watching this video. This video's topic was definitely interesting. Both a combination of learning that the Stegosaurus might be pretty much dependent on cycads, that Colombia has the highest diversity of cycads in the world, and about the hippos that are invasive there. It definitely brings up interesting possibilities. I want to say a special thanks to artists Keenan Taylor, Taliesaurus, Sagesprig, formerly known as Rockntooth, Trendorman, O Coffee Black O, and SameerPrehistorica. Whether they're making a piece of art for me or allow me to use their art, they definitely help me out on bringing this product to life. And also, I want to say special thanks to my members, Patreons, and subscribers, and viewers like you. Thank you. If you're not a member yet, definitely become a member. If you're not a patron, go on to my Patreon page and become a member. If you haven't already, be a subscriber. And and like and share with your friends, especially those who you know would be very interested in the topic of this video and channel. I also want to say a special thanks to the sponsor of this video, David Glean. He sponsored several of my videos, and even sponsored for other videos, and for a good chunk of this year. And I'll leave you a link to his YouTube channel down below, and give him a subscribe and a watch, and give him a lot of support. I sincerely hope that each and every one of you has a grand day. Adios.